G'day guys, welcome to Geraldton in Western Australia. I have just arrived at Stone Surf, which is run by Mark Stone, the dad of Jager and Hendrik Stone, two local windsurfers that you may have heard of before. They do surfboards, sailboards, kiteboards. And today we're going to talk about asymmetric waveboards because in the last year or so Mark has started making them again, and I thought since a few people are talking about it, it might be a good idea to have a chat with him and what's the story is. Hello. And here we are. That's a good choice of music.
Yes, it's on continuous play. There you go,
G'day Mark, how you going?
Yep.
Good to see you, mate. I had a quick look at your website and I saw that you've started shaping in 81. Is that true?
Yeah. Surfboards. It took a year off to get the surf bug out of my system. I was qualified as a geologist and all that. And,
right, okay.
I was gonna. So I travelled up the East Coast surfing with a couple of mates on the Bob Hawke surf team. Basically, after that year, I was going to go back because there weren't many jobs for geologists. They probably were, but I didn't actually want to live inland. I still wanted to be by the coast. I was going to do my teacher training for a year. But I got back, and after experience the warm weather up in North Queensland and all that sort of stuff, I went and stuff there. So a mate sent some pictures over here and beach buggies on the beach and all this sort of stuff and said, let's go over there. So I rocked over here and we fitted in really well with a lot of the local guys and that. And I built a surfboard in Victoria a couple before I left. I remember actually seeing, because when I came back through Malakuta, I remember seeing, and this was probably 82 or something like that, some windsurfers out at the river mouth there and that, and I thought, I wouldn't mind giving that a go. But anyway, when I got back and I priced the materials and stuff, I think it was like $700 to do a sailboard, 100 to do a surfboard. So I went, stuff it, I can afford to throw away $100, so I'll give it a go. So that's sort of how that started. And then when we got here, I was just obsessive, passionate about making boards all the time. I just couldn't help it, sort of thing. I remember glassing them in our house in the kitchen, gloss coating them in there, much to the other guys. I think there was about 7 guys living in the house together, sort of thing. So, yeah. And then a couple of years later, there was a guy, Wave Scalpel, or Jeff Hillwood, came to town, and he was right onto the windsurfing and stuff. And he came around to me and said, let's set up a factory together. I'm sailboards, you're surfboards. And I went, yeah, no worries, I'm not interested in sailboards anyway. Yeah, we set the factory up together, so, and that was, and then we got another guy to lease the bit out the front and stuff, so we operated like that for a few years. And then I used to do, because I was always working and surfing 2-3 times a day and all that sort of stuff. And I was actually doing his glassing, his boards and stuff too. And then when the place got bought out, as in we lost the place, I realised I needed to work from home somewhere, and this place came up, and it worked out really well for me to move into here. And then I still glassed his boards for him up here.
Oh, okay.
But then after a number of years, he sort of got drawn away into doing other things. He Army Reserve ambulance officer, then actually trained to be a doctor, much to his credit. Then suddenly I had the opportunity to build the sailboards, and I was copying them at that stage. This was probably 20 years ago. I was just copying what they were writing and all that sort of stuff and that. And anyway, and I did a few dud boards and that. And I went, geez, maybe I have to learn to windsurf. Anyway, so I had all the gear and no idea down the beach. And we just started from there. I got Jager into it. He said, because he was doing swimming club and stuff. And
so how old was Jager when you started teaching him?
11 or 12 or something.
So do you know what year that would have been? Because I was...
well, he's 30 something now, so. He was born in 1990.
Oh, yeah, because
yeah.
the reason I say that is because I lived in Perth from 98 to 2002, and I remember coming up to Coronation around 2000.
Yeah.
So I guess if he was probably about 10 or so, and I remember you dropping, like after school, you were with Hendrix and Jager,
Yeah.
and just seeing these little kids just rip off the beach, and they were already way better than I was, and I was like 20, I was like 23 or something, and I just knew, like, it was kind of like, I remember even back then I got, oh, those kids are going to be really good. I mean, you just know when you start that early and you're that good.
But the gift was Ben Severn was around town then, and he developed the microwave gear.
I think growing up with guys like Ben Severn in town, they definitely pushed me quite a bit. There were some really good local sailors as well at the time, and there were other people here. So I remember, the guys doing loops like Mick Kane and Andrew Lang and Corey, and then guys like Colin Dixon were here, and other European travellers that came here to train. So they all pushed me quite a bit in the beginning, and then I think just watching windsurfing movies every day, watching Cowley and watching Jason Pollock every single day after school or before school or whatever, that pushed me a lot. And then as I guess began working with Severn, then hanging out with Scotty and Luke Walmsley and Ty Bodycoat, and those guys had a reputation as the best windsurfers in the world essentially, so hanging out with them and being pushed by them, and Scotty and Ben still push me to this day, almost as much as anyone probably, so it's pretty cool.
So Jager was on very, very good equipment to start off with and stuff, so and he was just very technically minded anyway.
I thought you were
Hendrix's credit, he's amazing sailor too,
Oh, he's super good.
Yeah, he's just more casual about it.
I thought you were just going to take full credit for Jager and Hendrix's ability.
Probably get it from their mum. For me to learn sailing at 40 years old, to start sailing and then actually learn to have to go backwards, is a real challenge. I mean, when you're young and stuff, and I remember Jake used to practice table tennis, both hands and stuff, and right with both hands, so he could do both sides of his body.
Wow.
Whereabouts I'd never moved my left foot in 40 years, basically. So to suddenly have to bend down and do all that sort of stuff. And I think at the start too, because it was all single fins back then, it was all technique sort of stuff and that. And you were so scared doing the bottom turn all the time, going through, and me going backwards and that. It became very hard for people to learn to sail, and that I felt and stuff. Anyway, and then after a trip to Hawaii and taking some boards over there, and I thought, oh beauty, I'll go to Hawaii's opposite tack, I'll be a bit better. And I wasn't, it was still terrible. And basically I got Mickey Swiger to have a go on one of my boards, and it was just something that he said to me about how the flat area or the planing area and rock on the board forces you onto that position of the board. Because at that stage I had the classic flat in the tail with a forward curve, and you'd have to lift with your front foot and on your back foot, and sort of off you'd go. And then the curve was in the front of the board, but it was always about hitting, and they always used to do these big aerials down the line. But to do a really nice connected turn at the top, the surfing style, it was really hard on that. Anyway, so from that I came back, I put tail rocker on a board, and I started, I think, the multi-fins then, doing that. When Jager first went to Maui, he basically put a towel, when he was going over there, he put a towel on the tail of his board because he was embarrassed, because he had multi-fin boards and everybody was on single fins.
And what year though was that?
I don't know. He's been over 14, 15 times.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't the norm, but he was conscious of that. And because I was trying to do the multi-fins here, I was just getting hammered. They were just, too slow, too this, too that, everything like that and stuff. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's almost like, because a lot of that drag sort of things disappeared now, but it was almost like when you drive a four-wheel drive type car with the grip and the hold and stuff, compared to a two-wheel drive that's a little bit more freer and stuff like that. So it was just a slightly different feeling, and after a month you didn't notice it. And then it also challenged me because I had to make the thrusters faster, so I learned about the cants and the toe ends and all this sort of stuff, because at the end of the day it's like aeroplane wings, it's sort of like you start pulling things in too much and stuff, it's going to stall and that. So we were sailing as fast as anybody else out in the water, and I found then that because we introduced the tail rocker into the boards and stuff, and it basically became, then you sailed more level-footed. That's the fastest part of my boards, and then we have the tail kick. So, and then because we had the tail kick, we were a bit more over fin than other boards because we were compensating for that lack of rocker. So we tended to sail on the fins a bit more too and stuff. And then another good thing that happened was I couldn't really get, it's very hard for me to get anything like fins and stuff like this. It's not like all the guys in China, they can get all those bits and pieces and stuff. So I actually started making my own fins, and that's when it really started, you know, going up and stuff, because just the thickness of the polyester fin compared to, say, the plastic or the G10, it sits right in the middle really nicely. So you get this really nice flex, not too thick and stuff. And, you know, I can build a board with set boxes in it, so there's no adjustment. And I go for a sail, I come in and I sand the fins to suit the board, you know what I mean? Like, so it's there. So a lot of these boards now, they have plugs everywhere and the fins up and down and that, and people get very confused and stuff too. So mine's all about the steering wheel at the back. That's where you turn, that's where I want you to stand. You cannot move from that. And then I just do slide, depending on the boxes I can get at the time and that. So that's a nice, you're on the sweet spot, then it's just adjusting the front foot sort of thing. Basically, I just build boards to please myself. And obviously doing it for 20 years, you tend to get a little bit burnt out with the passion and stuff like that. Like I used to have crazy ideas in the middle of the night and race out here and start shaping something in that. But you always tend to learn from those extremes, and then you sort of pull it back. It's sort of like when I did this super short board, you know, and this thing works perfectly fine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it scares everybody. It scares them because they go, ooh. But what you learn from this is the shoulders are so important up through here. It's this part of the board when you're going really short and stuff.
So what effect does it have when you chop the nose off like that? Because is the rest of the board, I mean, it looks pretty wide in the tail, so you've had to change the whole shape?
It's not wide in the tail, and that's another thing. It's all about where your foot strap sets up. So all I've done is got a saw and cut the tail off.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's always about where your foot strap is.
Oh, I see.
And the foot straps, I mean, way up here, you know. So, but if I cut this off here, probably should cut the fin off on that one too, you know. But it's all about where your foot strap is on the boards nowadays. So this board's, I think, is just over 2 meters or something like that.
Yeah, so it's for light wind days, essentially, is it?
Oh, it's for everything. It just
okay.
It's just fine. It's like an all-rounder for me and that. But what the really short nose sort of does is when you actually watch and you watch it in the water, because it's so short, it doesn't look as good, because it's almost like out there, and it's nice to have that little bit of length on the board to make it look more finesse, that sort of thing. But for somebody, you know, with a small car boot and stuff, they want to chuck it in or got to travel and stuff like that, well, it's very functional, you know.
You are involved in different brands. Did you want to just briefly talk about that? Because a lot of people do know the Ultra Code's obviously been a super popular board, and you were pretty involved with the development of that? Or?
Yeah, well, each year, because we came and went with Starboard and stuff, and basically they'd have all their boards for tests and all the rest of it, and Jager would turn up because he was allowed to use his own custom boards, and basically they'd throw his boards in the test, and everyone would say, I like that board the best. So they ended up in production quite a few times, and then the last few years we went from the pintail, very sausagey shaped ones, to these ones here. And this is almost a parallel rail sort of thing, you know, on this sort of stage that we went to. And that was shorter because they were only just over 7.2 or 7.1 or something like that. We went to, Jager wanted some boards for Hawaii, for bigger waves and to change things a bit. So I made a bit more of an extreme sort of board. I don't have one here that looks like it, but it was a lot narrower through this part of the board here. And then you sort of learn that it gets you, because you imagine if you're on a wave and it's sucking this big and your board's quite wide, you're actually standing further away from the wave face. But as soon as you go narrow on the tail, all of a sudden you're closer and you feel more secure and you start to pick up different lines. Okay. But the problem with those ones being quite narrow through there were when it came to sailing ability, it was a little bit, you've got to jump further forward because we sailed quite small boards. So you had to jump forward a bit and it was a bit tippier and stuff like that. So that one was the first one I did. I think that one came out for about 2 years or something like that. and Jade was really happy on that one. That's the 76 or 78 litre. Anyway, and he really actually, that was one of the first boards he really actually enjoyed as a production.
Yep.
In the wave, so I used that Mogul River lots and up north and all that. He was very comfy, very happy on that, which meant I didn't have to build in boards, so that was good. And then I'd play around with my own board, so because that was the Ultra Code obviously, and then this was going to be the next one, the Ultra Code 2. I was playing around with this, and then we basically jumped ship over to Severn, and they didn't want this style of board for reasons, because they had another swallowtail in the range, and I was very happy. We were really happy with this board. David, this was like his favourite board and stuff.
Yeah.
And basically, the way it eventuated from there was Ben Savan said to me, he said, "Oh, what about an asymmetric?" And and I had the biggest heart attack and stuff. I just went, "Oh my God, why do you want to go down that path? This is so complicated," because I actually glassed this board back in the 80s. So that's sort of what was in my head and stuff. So it was just bizarre, you know. But anyway, I mean, it all looks cool and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, so I thought about it for a month, and because of COVID and stuff, I didn't have any materials. I was sort of scratching around, but I remember that I had a really heavy blank in here that I just couldn't use, and I'm laying there, it's about 40 degrees, 45 degrees, hot and stinking and that, and I'm thinking, oh, what if I use that board, just glass it up as light as possible, just don't put any glass on it or anything like that. So anyway, the concept that I came up with was, because they were wanting to put this board with this board and put them together, and I wasn't sort of happy with that. I thought it was a lot better idea to start with your favourite board, one that's already really good, and then fine tune it for the conditions you're sailing in. And what I basically did was I shortened off this side of the tail here, so that the idea of that is, boom, when you're hitting the top turn, it snaps around easier, it's a lot easier. I really thinned out this rail through here, and where this fly was, I took that edge off through here to give it a more of a fine rail, so it was fine enough for going through the chop and bouncing, and that it would cut through a little bit easier. And then on this rail here, I basically just continued this down a bit more into this part of the board through here. The problem is, it's a never-ending story. You can keep changing things, you can keep taking it to an extreme, and the problem is, you learn from this, is it scares people. You know, they're not going to be receptive to it. So what I wanted to do was just really subtle changes that would make a difference, and it's great. It's good, because it's like you're riding a shorter board and then a longer board. Had to really maintain the sailing ability of the board. Couldn't afford to lose any sailing ability or anything like that. Still had to sail really good. So sailing out is great. If you lost a little bit out the back, you always pick up a wave to come back upwind and that. Bottom turns the same, all that sort of stuff, maybe a little bit better. Top turns definitely better. We're hooking around through that sort of stuff. And the big surprise for me was, I remember the first time I rode it was out at Corro and stuff, and sailing out. My first turn on the drive out the back, I noticed it straight away how quickly it came around, because it was on the short side. And then when I actually went through the bottom turn, I noticed, because this is reduced through here too, it actually wanted to sink easier. So it improved both facets of that turn, those two styles of turn, of that drivey adjustment turn sort of stuff, and the top turn and that. I have a very good tail rocker through the board, through this part here. Like if you put an edge on that, I'd have like this much. And then our planing areas through here sort of thing. And then I have the V just up to here, not too heavy and stuff, then double concave through. And I'm a fan of that, because basically when sailboards go so fast and you just want to get rid of the excess and that. So the idea is you lean on one side and then you're turning off half the board. It's not the whole lot. I mean, you start doing single concaves and that still locks the whole of the board in, but it's to try and stop that cavitation and all that sort of stuff, so everything flows and stuff. And then on this one here, these are the fins that I rode this the other day, and you can see the flex and stuff in these things. So
yeah, so
that's
they're the
really
fins
nice.
that you make here, right?
Yeah, they've been hacked around a bit, but yeah, that's that thing. And sometimes, you know, stages you go through, this was a bit too loose. It was a bit too, when I was sailing, like I wanted a bit more pressure, because it's all about that lift, that feedback the fins give you. But when I got on the wave, it was absolutely unreal. It was great because I've sort of steered towards the quads a bit because I'm going backwards and I'll never bend this leg enough and I'll never have the strength of that. I set my quads up a bit like a drivey twin fin, so it's a little bit easier and a little bit more pivoty. Always a bit more fun when it's on the onshore and stuff and that. But when you really do dial in a thruster, like you get everything just spot on and that, it feels absolutely great, yeah.
And because you've got, you make mainly polyester boards custom, and is that because you have a
I'm
reaction
allergic to epoxy.
Yeah,
I can do epoxy repairs now and all that sort of stuff. Like I have my tricks.
Yeah.
But so I'll show you the plan.
So for anyone who's not up to speed with this, most production boards, or I'd say all production boards these days are vacuum sandwich epoxy boards. But we're talking about a polyester, which is more like the old school style where the foam blank doesn't suck in water.
So that's what I challenged Proffitt Blanks. They're a blank producer in Queensland.
Yep.
Okay. And traditionally there's certain weight foams, they call it Ultra, which is their lightest, and then there's the Feather, and then there's the Blue, or whatever they call them, sort of thing and that. And because I was doing the sandwich construction, okay, I didn't need it as heavy as what they traditionally do. So they blow this for me, so it's an ultra foam. So it's a very light. So I start off with a little bit extra weight with the blank, but because it's stronger, then I don't have to put as much into it to support as well. Plus it's closed cell and all this sort of stuff too. But it actually has a softer feel, because I find like once you start really making these super light carbon boards and all the rest of it, anything that hits the bottom comes through the top, and the lighter they are, the stiffer they are. So, I actually really enjoy the feel of that, and a lot of people do, that smoothness that you have a feel.
I can vouch for that, because I bought one of these Stony secondhand last year, and in Geraldton we have, good solid winds, and it's really comfortable through the chop. Like, I don't think you can't beat the polyester board for comfort, I'd say. That'd be fair to say, right? I mean,
it's even the flex in the wave and stuff too. We just feel that. But anyway, that's what I'm stuck with. So, and it's sort of a gift in some ways, because I'm sure if I had to go down the styrene route and all that sort of stuff, who knows where it would have been? Because it's an absolute nightmare when they jump like crazy here. When things are so hard, you get one little hole in it and suck up water and all that sort of stuff. So it's almost like I don't know, it's meant to be in some ways. And because I'm I guess you could sort of say it's a problem solver. I get really frustrated if, I lay there in bed trying to solve things. I had to work out processes to build these boards and materials and stuff to get it all happening. And I'm not going to tell you all the secrets as much, but now I can vacuum bag my Divinycell on the bottom. I can put my timber on the deck. I'm very happy with the way it's all coming together at the moment. So I'll show you this one in here if you like.
Yeah. So this is a customer order, is it?
Yeah, this guy borrowed my my Asymmetric the other day and stuff, and I gave it to him as a quad and saying, I really, really like this as a quad, sort of stuff and that. And he's in Mauritius, backwards and forward between here and there, and he's already got one of my thrusters and stuff, which he was happy with too and that. Anyway, he had a spin on this, and he said, that feels great, all the rest of it, but I would really like to try it as a thruster. So I gave him that super flexi fin that I had there, and I threw that in my board, and he came back and says, I want the thruster. So I see that as a big tick sort of thing, because it just means it's doing what it needs to do. And that was sort of coral and that too. So the bamboo's good, and it's so structural too, it's got such good pull apart strength and good impact strength and stuff. I go through my stages. I had some headache stages of things not releasing properly and not going off properly and all that, and there's so much work building these things. Well, I think I've got to about 24 hours now, and that's doing the whole lot, start to finish, making the fins the whole lot. But when things start lifting or not doing things properly in that, but I've actually solved a lot of problems this year. So everything's rock solid, so I can just come in here, do all the work on that without having to fix things and stuff like that. So,
since we've got this this board just here, can you just touch on, I guess, the main design elements of this asymmetric that makes it stand apart from a symmetrical board? Like just because I can sort of, I've got good light in here, so you can sort of point out like...
Yeah. Well, basically just this rail is a lot thinner on the long-term side through here. This
so
side here's a little bit fuller, so I just put a little bit, and I remember Jeff Elwood, because he used to do the wave scalpels back then, he said it was so easy shaping asymmetrics because you don't have to get two rails the same. So it's actually quite relaxing. So when I'm doing this rail here, I'm over shaping a bit, I'm blending it all down and all the rest of it and stuff. Then on this side, I'm thinking a little bit fuller and holding back a bit more and sort of stuff like that. Because basically I'm hand shaping everything. So, it's not really a lucky dip, but they seem to come out very consistent when they're finished and stuff like that too. Because I have a blank to start off with, there's parameters there already, Yes. And then the rockers are all pretty good. I adjust the rocker nose and tail and bit through here and that. But once it goes on the jig, then it compresses it down. Then I'll adjust the rocker through there, just through bits of Divinacell and stuff like that. If it needs to be a little bit faster or this or that. And I've got about 3 or 4 different jigs there and stuff,
And what sort of difference in thickness is there with the rails from the longer sides to the shorter side?
Honestly, it's irrelevant. This one's a bit thinner than this one.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's that sort of the whole point, I guess, of the asymmetric. You don't have to put numbers on. It doesn't have to be here or there. It can just be fine tuning. So if I build this board, I will just finely tune it a little bit more than what I would normally, you know what I mean? So I have some rail templates there and I'll put it on. So I'll overdo one side, maybe keep the other side the same and stuff.
Okay.
So,
and is there any science behind the length of the rails? Because obviously on that scalpel, the longer side is obviously a lot longer than the shorter side. But on these ones, it's a bit more subtle. Well, you don't want
to scare people. But I mean, I can cut that much off. But the problem then too is you start to lose sailing ability. So I have a certain amount of sailing ability in this board. If I start getting too radical, like pulling the whole rail in on this side, say, and getting it all there, then you're sort of upsetting the balance and stuff. And at the moment, it's not my job to go and push all those boundaries because no one's paying me to do that. So why stuff? The whole thing of my board in there I was really happy with that. I've learned from this by being pushed by somebody else sort of thing. But I had to do it off my own back sort of thing. I had to go in there and do that and that because no one else is giving me ideas or helping me out in that way. So I just do what I do. And the good thing is it actually makes sense, in some ways. So it's like me with your board now. I could go and cut a little bit off that or I could put one fin a bit bigger on one side than the other side. Everything doesn't have to be symmetrical. And we're always going this way. It's like a racing car that goes around the track all the time. They actually build it with a cant on it and stuff. Try doing it the other way, it won't work because it's extreme. But if you do subtle changes, then it's all good. So.
And what about fins for these boards? Are they still symmetrical? Like they're all symmetrical?
There is. I was trying to make the boards faster. The thrusters and that, they're talking about drag and stuff. And your traditional fin goes sort of like coiled up through there and then it goes thin at the back. And the water comes around and basically it can cross over there. So I ended up with a fin that went with the foil there like that. And then I still had the foil through here with the lift. And then I brought it in like that at the back. And the idea there is the water comes off parallel and the water comes off parallel there. So I did that a fair bit. Anyway, so I did that, but it's a subtle maybe difference in that. And if people aren't asking for it and stuff, I'm not going to worry about doing it because they're quite happy with the way the boards are. So that's an asymmetrical that might come out. I'm not too sure yet, but it's a go of fin because that still gives you the lift. This curve here, when you start going, as soon as you go a flat foil like that, the fin's got to be a hell of a lot bigger to do the same job because you're not getting the width. The water can't attach to it when it's flat. But when there's curve, it'll attach. So I'll just follow that, stays attached, so it doesn't get that cavitation.
Interesting, yeah.
The other thing too is that actually changes the flex of the fin too. So it bends a little bit more one way, and because of the concave, it doesn't bend as much the other way. Yep. Does that make sense?
Well, that middle one's starting to look like an airplane wing or something, isn't it? Well, it's obviously designed to lift one way, right?
One?
Yeah. Well, it's obvious because they're not. Well, like, because an airplane wing's not symmetrical, is it?
No, well that's right, that's where this falls in. Yeah, that's where that sort of goes on and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
So yeah.
God, there's a lot of variables though, isn't there, that you can,
tuning. Yeah, you just, it doesn't have to be to the extreme, you just pull it back a bit. That's, you learn from the extremes and then you pull it back a bit and you end up somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So,
and how many boards are you shaping for customers overseas?
It's too hard to ship overseas.
Yeah.
Costs and that is just crazy.
Yeah.
And to be honest, unless I meet people, unless they have my board already, I'm not really interested in building them boards because it's windsurfer market is they have so many preset ideas, and I have to know where they are because my boards are specialised or something. I don't, they're easy riding. They do all that sort of stuff, but there's nothing worse than you make somebody and they're not happy and stuff. Yeah. So I've got to make sure that all my bases are ticked because I don't have to make boards for everyone. I only need people that I meet and thing and that, and I'm plodded along quite nicely, sort of thing.
You're busy enough. Because
I do everything, I'm doing kiteboards and surfboards and mows, and I'm happy doing ding repairs and stuff like that anyway, I'm just out here, get busy for the week and then do that. So it's all good. And I need a break from things too. You go from this to this to this to this, and, but once I get into it,
You've hit a sweet spot at the moment, I think, with just your busyness, haven't you? You can build boards, make some money from it, and go sailing whenever you want. You've kind of found the perfect
it's always
balance.
been that way though. The good thing about sailing here, I remember when you first started, because it drive you nuts in Geraldton. Every, for 6 months of the year, it'd be the southerly would be blowing, all the surfers would get up, going. Whereabouts the windsurfers would get up and go, beauty, it's going to be windy this arvo, So then you're motivated all day long, and you get stuck into it. The trouble with going surfing early was then you're a bit tired and you couldn't motivate yourself all that sort of stuff too,
Yeah.
But sailing's great, and because it's not dark till 7:30, 8 o'clock, you can leave at 5 o'clock if you want, I used to grab the kids and we used to go up at 4 o'clock or 4:30, and there was always this wind shift at that time, and it would just swing a little bit more side shore and get a little bit better. Everybody'd be whinging from that 3:30 to 4 o'clock, sort of stood out. We'd get there and boom, the wind would come up. So it worked really nicely for all those years, It was
no, it's great.
It was pretty cool.
And what's happening? Is this the painting room or?
Yes, where I paint.
I got another one on the go.
This was the original board. So this is the very first one I built.
Oh, right.
So with super light and all the rest of it. And this paint was so heavy and I glassed it so light, and it's still in really, really good nick. And the weight difference was only I think it was actually 200 grams lighter than what I normally did back then.
Yeah.
But,
they look great. You do really good paint, the finishing looks great on these boards, I think.
Yeah. And that's just acrylic car paint. I don't paint all the heavy 2-pack stuff on that. It all chips and it gets heavy and complicated and stuff, But this one's been through the wars a bit. I just used odd boxes and this all sort of thing. I actually reground, moved them around again and all sorts of stuff, But this board, like Jacob describes it, this is a very soulful board sort of thing. It's I'll get my straight edge and I'll put on the bottom. So then that's whereabouts we have our tail kick up through here. So it'd be up like that through there. And then as we go up, then that's our planing area. So we'll sail very low, level footed. So to get my boards planing, basically your front foot's in the strap, your back foot. I usually put my foot in the back strap too, but it can stand there. That's the flattest part of the board, so you sail level footed to get going sort of thing and that. If you step forward on them and then try and get them going, you're actually standing on pushing water more. So as soon as you see that wind on the water, in the straps, wait for it and then lift, and then we use the S1 so we can actually lift the board out of the water. I feel like I can put it on top and then squidge it off. Because I always relate like planing to like the old skim boards on the beach, when you were a kid you used to jump on it and you skim along. That's planing, and that's all you need. You only need this big. So to have a board that's all the way up here, and then somebody standing up here, it makes the board feel too long. We're into the wave, so we want to minimise the planing area so it's efficient just where you want it, sort of thing.
No, it's definitely true because the board I got, the Stony I've got is 80 litres. I'm currently 88 kilos, and I thought I'm going to need a fair bit of wind to get this thing going. But I was surprised how quickly I could get it going. It definitely surprises you with the planing ability. Obviously that rocker is pretty major.
And the other thing too, even once you start running the double concave through here, you actually end up with a flatter area through here too. Because you can almost have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rockers, on the board. And what are we planning on here rather than here now? That sort of stuff, So there's all those sort of slight variables and stuff.
Yeah.
So and we've got a little bit of here in there. I like to keep it flat loose right there. Keep the edges up to keep the water off as you're going through. The water's getting thrown off the sides and not being sucked around the rail and stuff too. So
what, like this asymmetric thing's obviously a bit of a flavour of of the month at the moment. You know, like it's something that's grabbing people's imagination. So are you finding that, quite a few orders now are asymmetric?
Oh, yeah, easy, 50%.
Oh, 50%?
Oh, yeah,
wow.
maybe even 60%.
Wow.
But I probably should be selling used cars. But no, it's nothing to be scared of. You know what I mean? It's totally functional. And that.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was all, we're like, because I think about the extreme one there and then modernising it, the wave scalpel one with all that sort of stuff, and thinking, well, like I could have a go at, having the big single there and all that sort of stuff. And I sort of think straight away, as soon as you do the single fin sort of stuff, and you can't really add the tail kick because it doesn't get upwind, you don't get the leverage. That's the whole thing of quads and thrusters, is you have extra fins to push on, so it allows you to push up. When you just have one fin there, you add tail kick, and then suddenly it's not getting upwind. So that's why a lot of the old single fins didn't have much tail rocker, because it was hard to get upwind and you lose that sailing ability. So as soon as these extra fins come on, you've got more leverage points, so that enables you to get up and go. So to go with that one, yeah, definitely I could, maybe do something half in between and that, but I don't have the time.
It doesn't look like that board would pivot anywhere near as good as this, right?
Oh, well, your fins, your foot straps up here and your fins back here, so no, of course not. No, and then the fin is so fat and it's got all these cutouts, because I remember them making them in the factory. They used to put these little things in the front and cut out, the grommet would be in there making fins, make 30 fins in the day, because scalpel was really popular. And all the Euros used to be climbing over the fence to get in to try and see, but he'd fence it all up so no one could get in, all the rest of it. And poor me trying to get some surfboard guys in to get orders and stuff. So, it was funny days. It was crazy back then, it was good. It was fun.
There was a lot of experimentation back in the day, isn't it? It's calmed down. Yeah. And so for this sort of board, is this really for someone who, is this mainly
if you want to ride like Jager, then just grab a board like this. No, it's a surfboard.
Yeah, but what I mean is, this is really for down the line, or...
No, it's very good at Coro and stuff.
Oh, is it?
It is very good at Coro, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's better. It's more conducive at Coro.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and because of this tail here, it actually makes it a little bit easier.
Okay.
So I find there, the quad, because it's like a 20 thing, it'll spin, because it'll pivot here and pivot there.
Yep.
Okay, whereabouts it'll pivot on there a bit easier. With the thruster, it pivots more in the middle of the board, so you've got to push it through a bit more.
Okay.
Okay, but I found if you have a very upright fin, without the flex on it, it'll snap around a bit easier. It'll pivot on that because it's more pivoty. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Sort of thing without that. Or you have a really flexy fin in the arse end that'll help it kick around and stuff. Makes it a bit better there.
So we've talked a lot about the pros of this design. Any cons worth mentioning that you might be compromising from a standard symmetric board, or?
No.
What about jumping?
Well, I mean, Jager used it during winter when it was blown from the opposite tack, and he said it was still fine, still good. It's not that radical that it's going to suddenly, the sky's falling and all the rest of it.
But jumping, like the release off the tail, sort of notice it?
How good a jumper are you? You've got to put everything in perspective of what people actually do out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, well, Jager's, you've seen that huge push loop he did on the Asymmetric the other day.
Yeah, maybe I should be more clear. I don't mean so much like being able to do jump like Jager.
We've still got the lift off this long rail as you're jumping up.
Okay, I thought just more like, is that like when you're going up a wave face, do you notice any unbalance in the fact that the board isn't symmetrical or anything like that? Okay.
No, because it's conducive, because you're asymmetric when you sail anyway, aren't you? I mean, you have different leverage points. Everybody kicks a footy with their left foot or their right foot.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yep.
You go down a hill with speed bumps. Okay, go down on your forehand and you go, okay, I can predict that. You go down the hill backwards with the speed bumps and trying to coordinate left things. So we're asymmetric as it is, you know what I mean? And the waves are always this way. So it makes a little bit of sense to have a little bit of bias towards that.
So I've just bought your symmetric board, so now I've got to sell that.
No, I've got a saw, I'll cut the tail off.
Now I want one of these.
Yeah. It's not like that's going to be better than this or anything else. It's just another option. You know what
you're
I mean?
a very good used car salesman.
The other thing too, like I've been doing, is with the FCS2 fin boxes.
I'm pretty ignorant on the fin boxes because different brands of boards have their own systems and. So, is anybody else using FCS2?
No.
Okay.
Basically, I've started using these. I mean, because the fins are so small nowadays, there's nowhere near the leverage that we used to have back in the day. And they have such massive bases on them, they all add weight, and you just don't need that much on a fin this big. Anyway, this new system are so solid and good, you know, they're great. I just really rough up these edges here so it sticks really well.
Let's have a close look at the, oh, okay, so it's just, yeah, wow.
Yeah,
interesting. And
so it has a little divot in there, and that clicks into the fin. Okay, that clicks in there, and then I put a little grub screw in there too, so it won't come out and stuff. And the stability is you just basically do a couple of little resin rings down through to the deck, goes in and it locks. And I've been using these probably for 4 or 5 years. I have no idea, but it's fine. It's easy. And if you damage it, it's a big deal. You just
it's a really neat little system, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it goes in and it's nice and light and stuff. But part of this is because I can't source a lot of stuff. I just can't get it. You know what I mean? Because all the stuff in Cobra and Thailand, all that sort of stuff, or it's ridiculously priced, you know, the prices are just too much. And, you know, it works. So I use these for the quads and that sort of stuff. And then I've just gone back to the longer box for the thrusters and stuff. But I do have shorter ones there. But Starboard were good enough to give me a lot of boxes and stuff. So different types of slot boxes and stuff like that. So I run through all those and use sort of stuff. And of course I have a cost saving by using those as well, sort of thing, you know. So. And
those fin boxes essentially designed for surfboards?
Oh, they are surfboards. And
but I mean,
kiteboards and that too.
Oh, okay. But I mean, what I mean is like, that's not like for, do they have different grades, like lightweights and stronger ones or anything like that?
Just different angles.
Ah,
so you use 5 degrees in these, because that's another big thing too, is on sailboards when you look down on how the fins are set up on the boards, because you need these have cam built into the thing, so I want the fins to sort of leaning out a little bit. Up and down's okay, but some of them are like this. It's just totally wrong, because obviously you're going through the bottom turn and that, you want your fin leaning out a bit more. Too much gets a bit over the top, because it gets really good through there, but it might slow down, because it's always like those aeroplane wings again, you know what I mean? If they're leaning out like this, then it might want to start lifting the board up and down stuff, so you sort of get that and it depends on the guy a bit too. Like if they want a faster board, I'll keep them at 3 degrees, but if it's leaning out a little bit more, and then there's only a tiny amount of toe in. If you start doing this, it starts stalling, and it'll turn better, but you start to feel that drag sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But when you put in some of these other boxes and stuff, they're not actually designed to go on a lean when you put them in, because as soon as you do, all the grub screws are proud and stuff. So, and I know how they do it in the machines over there, but when they go in, they have to go in flat, I think. So you don't get this really nice looking. When you look down the surfboard, you can see the leans out. So obviously sailboards are a little bit more settled. So I think that's really an important thing that the industry should address, really, because there's no reason why build asymmetric fin boxes, you know, just with a slight cant on it, so when they go in, they're just right too.
Yeah. No, it's I'm learning a lot. It's very interesting.
And these are the fins that I've made, obviously. So they're going into this board here. So there's an extra flexi sort of one.
So what's the material of the?
Oh, it's just polyester, black pigment in it, and basically these ones are about 40 layers, and these ones here are about 27, 28 layers.
You know, people can get super finicky about every detail, but then on boards that have 5 fin boxes, they'll put 4 fins in or 3 fins in and have like either 1 or 2 gaping holes in the bottom of the board. Do you think does that matter at all?
Sometimes it can loosen the board up a bit more, you know, because you've got the bubbles coming down and stuff like that.
Okay.
But the big thing is when your fins are all nice and flush and their screws still sitting up, or they're jamming the fins in and the whole base isn't in properly, you know, that's probably more of an issue than that. But, you know, it's not a big deal just to plug them up, and everyone's got to play around, because every board's different, you know. It might be one with that's really flat in the tail. Yep. And maybe that might help loosen it up by throwing a few extra bubbles down. But so I mean, there's no rules. You can try all sorts of things.
No, but that's a good point about the fin not being flush and the screw poking up, because if you know, putting water over that at 25 knots, there's a fair bit of turbulence that will be created from that sort of thing. Yeah, we all know what this little bit of seaweed on the fin does. Yeah. Touch on your partnership with Severn and what you're doing there, or?
Basically, Jade is sponsored by them, and then they've asked to do the stone board and stuff. So
because people will see your name on these boards, right?
Yeah. No, great. I mean, that's all fantastic and stuff, and they've done 20 boards and sent them out to things and that, but I haven't actually been able to fully check them all yet.
Yep.
I'd rather check them before they all go into crazy. So I've managed to get hold of a couple, and I've told them the refinements that I want on certain things, and yeah, just a refined version of this. So that was the initial starting point, and that was the golden moment when I thought, the starting point, where do you start?
Yeah.
And you know, it's basically, I've got away with it. From that, when you talk asymmetric, that's what people think, and then you go to this and you go, okay, let's do a little bit, and then maybe later on you can get a little bit more radical and stuff and that, you know. But some of the sailing now, you know, it's like you're looking at the, you know, like Burnt and Kyleni and that in Hookeeper, you know, that's awesome. That's the surfing style, you know. That's that, and that's the path, you know, like with Jaeger and that too. That's the path, you know. So that's where we need to really listen to all that sort of stuff and that, because that's yeah. Well, that's our passion. That's it. That's the surfing, and they call it windsurfing. Well, that's surfing with the wind,
for sure.
You know. And then I guess it's the thing too, is there's so many sailors. There should be more up that upper end. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be as complicated as what it is. You know, we should have more better sailors. You know, but then you got guys who've never surfed in their life, you know, who are riding windsurfers and stuff like that. So, and like I say, I'm very biased. You know, I'm biased towards that. When people say to me, "Oh, do you do free ride boards?" I just go, "Oh." It's sort of like it's you know, it's not that all freestyle, but like I would have no idea or anything, and I'm not even remotely interested in that sort of stuff. You know?
Yeah.
So it's all that, and you know, at the end of the day, it's me and my tin shed, and so anything that happens outside of this is a bonus. Because this is where, and I'm on my own too much, obviously. I think too much and I do this and that, you know what I mean? So maybe I'm a bit crazy too. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'd love to have a go on one of the asymmetrics anyway and see.
Yeah. Well, there's the 84 there, so you can grab
Yeah,
that.
oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be amazing actually.
Yep.
About 3 hours ago, I put a question on YouTube. There's like I can type messages and all the subscribers can see it. And I wrote a message saying, oh, if anyone's got any questions for Mark regarding asymmetrics, quickly put it down now, because I'm about to drive over to his place. I think I've got 2 messages, because one just popped up as we were chatting. What I'll do is, because I can't read it and film at the same time, I'll text it to your phone, and then you can read the questions and see if you can answer it. Is that cool?
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Matt Hansen, apart from being for different tacks, what are the similarities or differences in design philosophy between a stone Assy for Aussie port tack and a Hawaiian starboard tack Assy like a Quattro? Well, they're 2 different boards, so it depends on their starting point, isn't it? But if I was doing this one for Maui, it would just be the reverse of what we've done, exact reverse. So, but obviously that may not be their favourite board. They might hate my board and prefer their board, so they do the adjustments to that. So, what's this one? This is fin foil. Did he experiment with ass and fin setups as well? If so, what are his findings? No, I haven't. I haven't bothered around with all that too much, other than what I talked about on the thing with the assy fins that we're going to bring out and stuff. But I have no issues with moving fins backwards and forwards and a bit bigger fin than this. It's all relevant to the board you're riding. You know what? I couldn't say this is going to go better on that board without seeing it and stuff. So I could put a slightly bigger front fin on one and do that. Of course you can. You can do all that, but it's whether you have the ability to be able to do that. I can make fins and do all sorts of stuff. So maybe I'll push those boundaries later on, you know.
Yeah.
But this is just a starting point. That's all. And it's not going to scare people. Like I say, it won't scare people. It's just purely about, you know, fine tuning. That's all.
It will be interesting to see where it goes from here. I guess it could be the start of a new thing, like when the thrusters came out and the quads. I know it's already been done, the asymmetrics, but I guess
It boils down to marketing for the big companies, because I think they told me like 90% of Europe is port tack anyway. So you know what I mean. So it sort of makes sense there.
Yeah.
So, you know, it can do so. And I mean, it's an excuse to buy. It's like golf clubs, isn't it? You have a few clubs and things. So if you can get away with that too, you know. So,
is Jaeger and Hendrix, are they just using asymmetrics now?
Hendrix, the board destroyer. He's I'll give him some of these to run. I might actually let him use this board for a while on that. But it's not like Hendrix has the latest greatest. I'll give him boards. I'll give him the older boards and stuff like that. Jade always has the latest, greatest, and he's actually using the 72 Severn Asymmetric at the moment, which he's really, really enjoying. And it's good. It's got heaps of tail kick on it. There's a couple of little touches that I could be fussy over, but no, he's really, really happy with that, as a thruster too, with my fins in it. So,
Mate, that is amazing. I think we've achieved our goal of talking and discovering more about asymmetric. So I really appreciate your time, Mark.
all right.
And yeah, if anyone out there is interested, especially if you're in Australia, of getting one of these, you can give Mark a call. Otherwise, you can look out for these Severn boards, especially if you're overseas. Like, any idea when they might be released?
I don't know.
All right, mate.
All right.
We'll leave it at that and
Okay.
see you around.
I'll go spray some paint.
Okay, mate.
Right, see ya.
Cheers. See ya.
Okay.